This is what is known as a Super Saiyan that has ascended past a Super Saiyan. Or, you could just call this a Super Saiyan 2.
Wilhelm, what a useless transformation. You've changed your hair, so what?
And this
What's he doing?
is to go even further beyond!
Obviously, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are some of the greatest anime to exist. And out of context, this scene is amazingly hype. However, in context, it's kind of dumb. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan, and I have opinions on power scaling in fantasy. Hello everyone, today I want to talk a little bit about power leveling, power scaling, and power creep, power seep in fiction. Because, well, many series do a pretty poor job of it. For those that don't know, power creep, power seep is a phrase coined in relation to comic books and superheroes, and basically refers to the phenomena where individual heroes have fluctuating power levels based on the storyline. For example, in Hulk's solo series, he's basically unstoppable. But in crossover events, he can be sidelined in a single hit. Likewise, Wolverine can heal from death itself in one story, and then be taken down by a single adamantium-tipped bullet in another, being outright killed in one movie, and then only losing his memories in another. It's an unfortunate byproduct of multiple authors writing multiple characters in multiple books, causing powers to be upgraded or downgraded based on the needs of the story being told. It's just one of the unfortunate aspects of the medium itself. Going back to the opening clip, Dragon Ball has multiple serious issues with power levels fluctuating vastly in short times. Characters like Raditz are introduced and curb stomp the entire cast of the Z Warriors. But later, when Vegeta and Nappa show up, they can create minions on par with Raditz, who take out the powered up Yamcha in a single blow. And this is basically his and Krillin's role throughout the entire show, to be taken down instantly by new villains to display how big of a threat the newcomer is, despite their continued training and powering up. Admittedly, this is an issue with many series having to introduce new and bigger threats, and it's just the power scaling of villains. However, even the main character's power leveling in Dragon Ball becomes strained, especially in later seasons. Take the buildup of the Saiyan saga to the final fight with Frieza and the eventual reveal of the Super Saiyan form. Or even the following arc building up to the improved Super Saiyan 2. It wasn't even really called Super Saiyan 2 originally, as it was just supposed to be a higher power output of Super Saiyan that many characters were trying to perfect. Vegeta and Future Trunks found a way to boost their strength while they took a hit on their speed and dexterity, while Goku and Gohan found a way to optimize the Super Saiyan energy output, reducing their fatigue and being able to stay in the form indefinitely, culminating in the far more advanced Super Saiyan 2 form. And then a time skip happens, and Goku just kind of just reveals Super Saiyan 3. Now, to be fair, the time skip was roughly 5 to 6 years of a dead Goku having nothing to do but train. So, of course you'd expect him to come back more powerful and with a few new tricks up his sleeve. The scene itself of the reveal is, of course, amazing, with a slow build and the mere assuming of the form affecting the world around him. But immediately later, Goten and Kid Trunks are able to obtain the same power even though it's been freshly introduced, and they have nowhere near the same accomplishments of the other Z fighters under their belts. And the reason for this is simply the level of threat requires that level of strength for characters to be relevant. Now that they've revealed the form so early on, and it didn't end the conflict, any characters that can't replicate that level of power are basically useless. So, for the series to stay relevant and gripping, people need to upgrade left and right just to keep up. This is a big problem in particular with long-running and popular franchises. Take, for example, the classic big three of anime: Bleach, One Piece, and Naruto. Years ago, these were the anime you used to define yourself as an anime fan. For me, well, I didn't really want to associate with the kids who wore the Naruto headbands and then faked the Naruto run through the hallways at school. And I also thought that One Piece was a bit too goofy. Yeah, that opinion's gonna come back to bite me. So, what was left but Bleach? The only one to be aired on Adult Swim. It was darker and edgier, so I must be darker and cooler for liking it, right? I wasn't. Now, ironically, not only do I stand by the opinion that it's the worst of the classic Big Three, I think it's one of the worst popular animes in general, and has a steep fall off. The biggest offender is its approach to power scaling. Bleach certainly ran for way longer than it should have, and pushed past its natural ending point. One of the worst examples of this is during a later fight when two characters that we've seen practically since the beginning of the show, and have been shown to be incredibly powerful, engage in a fight with a single enemy that basically goes back and forth, dealing one-hit kill attacks that each side keeps healing from, and performing another lethal dose attack in response, only for that to be ineffective as well. It goes on like that for a while, and I feel like I may make a video specifically on Bleach's downfall someday, so instead of going into detail on it, I recommend you read chapters 656 to 666 of Bleach if you want to see my point. And trust me, it's just as confusing of a fight even with context, so don't worry about not being caught up. These problems generally stem from popular series being extended based on public reception, and things being written as the story goes. It's kind of like the meme of JRPGs where the party starts out collecting herbs and ends with killing a god, which actually kind of happens in Naruto, and then Boruto needs to introduce more powerful villains than, you know, the god of shinobi. So, why am I just ragging on three of the biggest anime series of all time? Well, because there is one series I feel does power scaling perfectly, and that is
It's One Piece. It's One Piece. I'm gonna talk about One Piece.
I told you that opinion would come back to bite me. Yes, I can only assume that with age came wisdom, as even though my initial impression of One Piece was poor, though I may be able to cop out and blame it on the 4Kids dub, it has quickly become one of my favorite fictional series ever, let alone favorite anime. One of the largest factors contributing to that has got to be the level of forethought and planning that went into the series, which helped it to avoid a lot of the pratfalls that the aforementioned shows fell into. Not that these shows don't have forethought put into them, and don't set up certain aspects of their stories in advance, but I think many can agree nothing does it quite like One Piece. Oda's level of planning really aids in the pacing, scale, and the escalation of conflicts flowing one arc into another, to the point that you almost never feel like Luffy and the Straw Hats are constantly running around trying to power up to deal with threats. And one of these reasons is that Oda does not use a conventional power leveling to designate the differences in characters. Most series have power levels, S-ranked heroes, or even Genin to Jonin ninjas. Some form of classification to distinguish characters at different levels. That way, people can be amazed when it's revealed that their power is over 9,000. One Piece has a system like this, of course, what with the wanted bounties, but they function a little differently. Bounties are basically what the government of One Piece's world are willing to pay to be rid of this particular pirate. But that could mean a lot of different things, and doesn't one-to-one translate into the power of the character, just how much the government wants to be rid of them. Take the characters Robin and Buggy, for example. Both characters far from the most powerful in the series, especially when they get some of their larger bounties. Robin is only a child when she's first given a bounty of 79 million, not because she's powerful, but because she has information that the government would rather bury. Likewise, Buggy is insanely weak. He's like the third villain that Luffy defeats in the show. Yet, he gains a higher bounty later on in the series due to his past affiliation with the Pirate King, and by being in the right place at the right time to assemble a massively loyal army, despite him having basically nothing to do with their salvation. So, a lot of bounties have to do with how big of a threat the government sees you as, instead of direct strength. This is why we are presented with interesting questions when characters like Eustace Kid are introduced, who had a higher bounty than Luffy, when he's not ever presented as an enemy for Luffy to overcome. So, is he actually stronger than our hero, or is there more to his story? This is how Oda crafts a pretty easily understood, at a glance powering level without having to make things muddled in actual power levels. So, Luffy and his crew go through the story gaining bounties, not just for beating enemies and leveling up their skills, but sometimes just for the events that they're involved in. But what about exactly how powerful they are, and how they keep pace with the growing scale of enemies as the journey continues? That is, in my opinion, the true beauty of One Piece and Oda's ability to pace action. Throughout the story, Luffy only really powers up 3 to 4 times, and that's not a lot considering it's 1,000 chapters and 20 years of action and villains defeated. This is because a lot of the fights and conflicts don't 100% rely on the power of the villain to set the stakes. Sometimes there are dire consequences if you can't figure out the enemy's plans and put a stop to them. And sometimes the enemy, while not being very powerful, has a wacky power or plan that requires creative solutions to overcome. Early on in the series, there are many inhibiting factors that the Straw Hats have to overcome that make weak enemies last longer than they rightfully should. Luffy is captured due to his silliness and general lack of fear, or gets hypnotized into aiding the enemy twice, or even, due to his own technique, is immobilized and drowned in the water, which is significant as in One Piece, anyone who eats the devil fruits that are the source of the series' superpowers and abilities, they lose the ability to swim and then sink like an anchor in the water. Or Zoro. God Zoro is basically never 100% in any fight in early One Piece. His first fight, he hadn't eaten in 3 days due to being tied up and out in the sun as a punishment. Then, he's stabbed in a surprise attack before a fight begins, and is then wounded severely in several fights, and then always jumps into the next fight before being fully recovered many times. This was Oda's genius, using weakness and circumstances to raise stakes and prolong fights early on in the story, avoiding the all too stereotypical training arcs that other series need every other arc. And then, the few times where the Straw Hats come across enemies above their level, again, Oda uses circumstances and creativity to overcome them, like with Crocodile, and how Luffy is defeated many times and is only saved by luck, and the fact that Crocodile's weakness is his body getting wet, and Luffy was so badly wounded that all the blood he was losing soaked onto Crocodile, triggering that very weakness. Or with Enel, who was made of literal electricity and could smite people from insane distances, couldn't do anything because Luffy is made of rubber. For nearly 400 chapters, Luffy stays the exact same power level, overcoming challenges by the skin of his teeth due to luck and his own ingenuity. Even after the time skip and a few power-ups, Oda still employs these tools, creating an engaging story where the tension of who will win a fight rarely comes down to who can punch harder. Years ago, I actually made a comment on a Reddit post that was the seed of this idea, and I'll have that on the screen now if you want to give it a quick read. It goes over a few things in finer detail. This has been the aspect of the series that has stuck with me the most. I never feel like I am really suspending my disbelief in any of the fights, as even when a fight seems hopeless, the method of overcoming the challenge is usually pretty believable and explained clearly. I wish more stories utilize tools like this, and not just planning out every fight in the series and how it should scale accordingly beforehand, because, let's be honest, I highly doubt Oda's original rough draft involved over 1,000 chapters of action and adventure. I think the key is credible in-universe setbacks and the creative shifting of goalposts so that even less powerful enemies are still viable threats later on in a series' life. Once again, thank you for stopping by this time. I may return to this idea, cause even holding back on some analysis, this is the longest script I've written via word count and page count. But I think it would be interesting to dissect the nature of the power-ups and how they shifted the story's trajectory, especially considering since I initially started writing this almost a year ago, there were many more power scaling events taking place in the Wano arc that were received, let's say, less than positively. If you'd like to see that, please comment to let me know, or just comment about any topic you maybe want to see me cover. And if you like this video, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, friends.